There's an ancient story of a student who went to the master and said, "I pray, I study, I meditate, do my daily rituals, and I even fast a little. I live in peace with others. Teacher, what more can I do?" The master rose, lifted his hands, and stretched his fingers out towards the heavens, when suddenly they became like 10 lamps of fire. And then he said, "You can become all flame." Welcome, I am Jareth Tempest, mystic, magician, psychonaut, astronaut, hierophant, all-around seeker of truth, author, full-time weirdo, and host of this show, where we talk about mysticism, the mystical journey, and all that's magical in the universe, everything from spirits to spirituality, while I take you on a magical mystery tour through the inner worlds, and hopefully inspire you to take that next step so that you can become all flame. All right, well, I hope you had a good holiday season, and a happy new year to everybody out there. I know that I am exhausted from it all, so I can only imagine, what everyone else must be going through. But yeah, I flew home, and of course then had to fly back, and the whole time I was gone, it was just like one thing after another, day in, day out. We had stuff we got to do, but I think everything's about done and we can start to relax, at least around here. Okay, so I guess this week what I wanted to talk about is something that comes up an awful lot. New people especially ask me, but even people that should know better seem to still struggle with this sometimes. So, and basically it's talking about bravery in magic, and specifically like when you're doing a ritual. I get the question. I'll just ask the question. I get this all the time. I'm going to do this ritual, but do I have to do this? Or is it okay if I don't do this? Or, somebody's thought of something new that they would like to add something, but they're like, is it okay if I do that? And yes, the answer is almost always yes. So from now on, whenever you're having that doubt, just do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then you can just do it again and do it the other way. I mean, nothing that you do is going to make a ritual more dangerous, which is what I think that most people are worried about. Like, if you don't, hold your arms at a certain position or something, that gives the demon permission to come eat your face. There's nothing that you can do that is going to make the demon come eat your face. It's fine. It's fine. Just everyone out there that has this problem, just relax. It's okay. The worst that's going to happen is that you don't get the results you want. And then all you got to do, just got to do the ritual again, and it's fine. And really, this is, and we owe a lot to chaos magic for teaching us this, but there's very few parts of a ritual that are just really vital. It's almost, you can do almost anything as long as you believe in it, you have a clear intention, and you're doing it, and you have the energy to fuel it, then something has happened. It might not be anywhere near as effective as what it might have been had you done everything and done all the little details and everything just right. But it's going to do something, and it's going to do something more or less what you want it to do. Again, it just might not have the power. And so, I just really want people to relax. It's okay. It's not I said bravery, but it's not so much about, being brave. It's just don't worry about things. This is supposed to be, I know that it all seems so serious and it's like life and death, but it's really fun. And it should be fun. It should always be fun. There should be an element of fun to it. If you're not having fun, then, come on, it's magic. It's fun. That's part of you're almost reverting to a childlikeness where you're playing and you're using your imagination, only you're expecting it to really affect the world, and that's fun. That's awesome. You should have fun with that. I can't think of anything that's not fun about it. which isn't to say that you should just be like, crazy, blasé and just be like, anything goes and everything. You do need, because we're humans, we need a sense of logic for it to make sense. The logic doesn't have to make sense to anyone else, but it needs to at least make sense to us. That kind of helps us with the belief that we believe it's going to work. But really, you can if there's a part of a ritual that you, for whatever reason, just can't do, you can't afford that tool, or you couldn't get a hold of that ingredient, more than likely it's fine. You can just go without it, or find a substitution, like take like the Enochian system. Milo Duquette, in his book Enochian Vision Magic, talks about using paper versions of all the furniture and stuff. And I actually saw him in a video wearing a paper, the ring, the Pele ring, but it was made of paper. And it's like, I'm sure by now he could have made himself or bought a gold ring. I mean, they're all in Etsy now. It's not hard to find. Hell, I'm sure a fan could have sent it to him by now. But he just keeps wearing his paper ring. And that's what I'm talking about. You don't need, for every single ritual, all of the ingredients that are just right. It's like, if you don't have a colored candle, use a white candle, or use a beeswax candle. That's all they had for centuries. You can use paper, and people go on about like, oh, it's got to be virgin parchment. And it's like, and man, that just means clear paper that's never been used before for something else. Like, don't get lost in the minutia of it all. And now, if you believe that virgin parchment is really important and that it has to really be real parchment, then by all means go and try to use that as much as you can. But never forget that people in hoodoo will take a paper sack if that's what they've got, and they'll make something that'll work just as well. And it's just a matter of working with what you got. And that's as far as the ingredients go. If there's a particular part of a ritual you don't like, or that doesn't suit you, or is too long, it's not going to make the ritual fail, and it's not going to make the ritual dangerous. So just do it. Again, it can absolutely affect the potency of the ritual, because, spending 2 weeks crafting the tools and everything, ingredient for a ritual, and then doing a long ritual over several hours, all of that does add to the potency of the ritual. You can still get the same end result by doing a 5-minute version of that. It just depends on how your life is and how easily manifested it is. It can still work just as well. But if things are very unlikely to happen, it might work better if you take the time to do everything. But again, it's just potency. It's not gonna change the meaning of the ritual and make something else explode or something. Don't worry, you're not gonna Jack Parsons yourself. I don't think it was the magic that blew him up. I think it was that he was overworking himself and he was exhausted and made a mistake. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It's fine. Just the Jack Parsons was, he helps found the NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and he was also a magician, and a lot of people, he blew himself up one day working with fuel, and he messed up, and a lot of people blame the magic. And it's like, it wasn't the magic. He just, he was probably high or drunk or exhausted from probably being high or drunk. And, or just overworked and just made a mistake and blew himself up. And, it's a lot more dangerous working with jet fuel than it is magic sometimes. So it's more likely to explode anyway. So, anyway, that's one part of what I wanted to talk about, because, I really get that a lot. And I can only think of maybe a couple of times that what somebody was trying to change was really an important part of the ritual, or something that was like fundamental to what the entire, working was supposed to be. It's like the people, like, I think one of them is with path workings. People were like, well, I'm going to just cut out pictures that I find that look like that and just look at those, and that's what's going to work. No, because you need to use your imagination. So that would mess everything up. Now you can use those and then use your memory of those pictures. But then at that point, you're using your imagination, your memory, which is part of, you're using your imagination to make that memory come to life. Then that will work. But you can't use, look at a picture. Like one person was like, I want to make a virtual reality thing that plays the path working for you. And it's like, no. That's not that's not how it works. That is something that would be changing the entire point of the ritual. But that's really about the only thing that I've heard people talk about that was just like an absolute no, don't do that. There's plenty of rituals that have a lot of excess material that you don't necessarily need to do. But yeah. Anyway, so that's that. And the other thing is that, like, especially after I started, getting the path workings and stuff from Raziel, people were like, well, why are you getting this? They have to, act like I'm trying to make myself seem special because I'm getting these. And it's like, no, I don't think I'm special. I think that's just because I asked. Because just so many people don't ask. They don't ask for anything new. They just want, they're too afraid to want to, something new from the spirits. And I think that's really the only reason that, why I get the things that I get from spirits, like be it, the path workings or the attunements or something like Lucifer's book that I, it's like, I go to the spirits. I'm like, hey, can I get, so I have an idea of like, hey, I have this idea. And then the spirit will be like, okay, yeah, we got something. It's like that. And then usually it's not exactly what I had in mind, but that's the cool thing about it. It was like, if it was exactly what I had in mind, then that's probably just me making it up. But then it's like, there's a give and take. And I think that's really all there is. And it's not like I have like a super strong ability to communicate with spirits. Like, I don't hear them with my ears. I don't see them with my eyes or anything. I've just very well practiced in using the basic psychic abilities that I have, which are not incredibly strong. I just keep doing magic and keep practicing and keep trying to talk to the spirits. And the more you do these things, the more that you learn how to communicate, and you learn to hear them, in quotes, hear them. And it's in a lot of ways, it's kind of like, being blind and trying to find your way. But by using your other senses, you eventually kind of are able to create a picture of what's going on. And that's kind of what spirit work can be like sometimes. But anyway, so, it's not because I'm special, and it's definitely not because I'm so super psychically gifted or anything like that. I think that the biggest, thing that separates someone who's, innovating magic in some way versus the people who don't, are just that I'm not afraid to ask. And because there's so many people in magic that they are traditionalist, which is fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, if you're just being traditional, you're never going to get anything new. So there's that. So a lot of people just immediately cut themselves off from ever getting anything new because they're just working with what's been done before and trying to perfect what's been done before instead of trying to find something new. And then there's just the other people that are just like, oh, I don't want I don't want to make anything, not work or anything. So I'm just going to do follow the instructions in the book. The instructions are in the book for the beginners. At a certain point, you begin to see what isn't really necessary, and you take the parts that are necessary, and then you just make the rest your own. And that's really kind of what being an adept is. It's knowing what is essential and keeping it, and what can be adapted and adapting that, and then taking that next step and expanding on it and getting something more from it. And it's never going to happen if you're asking permission, because if you go to a spirit and ask permission, well, they're probably just going to say no. But if you go in and say, I want this, give me this thing, or can I have this thing, or whatever, then they're gonna be like, oh yeah, sure, here, and they'll work with you on it. And it's not an easy process. Like, sometimes getting something out of nothing, like that Angels of Omnipotence book, that hurt me. And it came through, like, almost every other book I've written. It's like, okay, well, the past workings, I would go to Raziel for each one and do that. It's like with the Angels of Omnipotence book, I went to them a few times. At a certain point, they gave me something, and I remember, and it physically felt cold. I kind of got the chills. And then I was almost like it kind of just lit this fire under me. And suddenly I was like, I have all these ideas. I've got to get it out. And that book came out so fast. Like, I think it probably came out in less than a month. And it just, and then afterwards, I was so tired and so weak. And I got real sick, because it's just that process of bringing something into the world. It takes a toll on you. And I remember, I mentioned her a lot, but I've heard Josephine McCarthy talk about the same thing on some of her projects, where she, you get this, this thing, and it's obviously not from you. And you just work on it, and you work on it. And then, it takes a part of you with it. It takes something to create something. And then she got sick after creating the Aquaria course, which is obviously a much larger achievement than my silly little book. But, it's the same type story. And so, there is a bit of a cost to all of this, but, that's magic. Someone got real mad at me because I pointed out magic is not safe. And that's something to always keep in mind. Like, it's not dangerous in the way that beginners tend to worry about, like, are something going to steal my soul, or is, I'm going to unleash some, horror upon the world or something. That's not really the problem. You're creating change, and then you can never predict how the change is going to, have the domino effect, that butterfly effect of, you make this tiny little change here, and it has all these unforeseen consequences. And it's not that, the spirits are trying to hurt you or anything. It's just that they're just giving you what you asked for. And what you asked for, by getting that, you've changed what would have happened. And so now you have to live with that change and the consequences of that in the world. And it doesn't matter if you're using magic or anything else. Causing change is dangerous. And if you don't recognize that, then I hate to break it to you, it's just part of life. And so, you should always try to think things through as best as you can. Use divination. But it's not dangerous in the way that you are worried about. And I think that that's just the biggest takeaway that I would, want people to have is just, quit worrying. Don't worry about the small stuff. Worry about that big stuff. Worry about the cause and effect of what you're asking for. Because that's where the actual danger is. It's like, okay, you got what you want. Are you really prepared for that? Because, as you get, more and more powerful in this, then you can really start getting everything you want. And you have to start really, considering what is it that you want, and, what would the consequences be? Like, just for example, what would happen if you actually won the lottery? It's a bad thing to try to get, but let's just pretend. Let's say you've won. You did it. You won the lottery. Well, now what? You've got people coming out of the woodwork. Suddenly, people you've met, before, and they all want a cut of it. How much are you going to give them? And then you have the people that you actually do care about. How much do you want to give them? Then you have to figure out all the legality of it. Do you have to show your face? And if you do show your face, does that make you a target? A lot of people who win the lottery end up having to pay ransoms for people that get kidnapped and their families and stuff. It's like, there's just all these other consequences that go into this stuff. And then ultimately, I think it's like 70% of people that win the lottery go bankrupt. How prepared are you actually to receive what you're asking for? That's always something that you should be taking into account, and doing any kind of magic, even, of course, love magic. Do you really want this person to love you? You can't control necessarily when it stops. Do you really want this person? Like, I hear people talking about obsession a lot. Oh, I just want this person to be obsessed. Well, do you really want that? Do you want them standing outside your house at 2:30 in the morning with a pair of binoculars and a fishing net? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen when you do that to somebody. And of course, baneful magic, like you curse somebody, but how are you going to feel when you find out that, okay, so yeah, they've got cancer and now they can't take care of their 3-year-old kid. That kid goes into foster care or something like that after they die, and it's like, okay, so you're fairly responsible for what happened to that kid in that life. Do you want that responsibility? Like, not saying that you wouldn't necessarily have to raise them, but do you want that on your hands and on your conscience? Can you live with yourself? All of these things are what you should be worried about. Or not worried about, but at least be respectful of. Not, if I change this part of the ritual, is it going to, steal my soul? And so that's what I mean whenever I say that, magic's not safe and we need to be brave. Because, we're facing, we're putting out real change, and that's always dangerous. And at the same time, if we want something new, we have to have the guts to ask for it. And that's kind of what being a magician is. And this is the other thing that just kind of it confuses me about people that are sending me messages and asking permission to do stuff. It's like, you're a magician. You're already asking powerful cosmic forces to bring you whatever it is. Why are you asking another magician for permission to change the ritual? It's like, just do it. See how it affects it. It's fine. Be a mad scientist about it. That's how you learn and grow. And yeah, sometimes something might blow up in your face a little bit, but not in a way that's gonna, scar you or anything. It's just, it'll be a learning experience. So yeah, that's really all I had to talk about today. So yeah, the other thing is that, like, I noticed that a lot of times I don't start getting views on this until I share things. And that kind of implies to me that a lot of the people who watch this or listen don't subscribe. And so do me a favor and hit that subscribe button or that follow button or whatever button you've got. Check out my Patreon. Check out my Etsy store. We got lots of exciting stuff coming up in the Etsy store. It's not out yet, but hopefully very soon we will have the name of 72, the 72 letter name of God, of the big Kabbalistic name of God that we derive the 72 angels from, and all of that. So that's coming really soon. So, keep an eye on that. And, really all kinds of stuff, all kinds of things coming out this year. I don't want to get too in depth on any of it yet, but, keep an eye on everything. It's going to be an exciting year. Okay. Well, I guess I will see you all next week. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you all for all of your support, all of the comments, and I know I'm real bad about getting to comments on YouTube and stuff, but I do appreciate everyone that takes their time and listens to me here. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.